Hi, Christie.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it The Why and the Buy.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Why and the Buy podcast. Hi, Christie. How are you?
What's going on, Jeff? I'm doing fabulous. You know, I'm just off of vacation, so I still have a little sway in my walk when I'm walking down the hallway because I've been on a boat. So
there's just something so effortless about your presence and your aura today, Christie. I can tell that you are refreshed.
You can tell that I spent my last week diving underwater in beautiful Cozumel. So
yeah, it's funny. Normally, when people go to Mexico for a week, they come back 3 or 4 shades darker than they are. You maybe it's the camera. I don't know if the lighting in your office is not the same, but you look pretty much the same as when you left. Underwater makes sense.
Well, I do have a little facial peeling going on, so that's hidden by the camera. It's what happens when you don't record in HD.
And maybe a strategy for some people.
Yes, exactly. But we had a great time.
Speaking of strategies,
yeah.
If this podcast is helping your strategy, our loyal listeners, please let us know. Reach out to us on Twitter. Reach us on the website. Reach us at our email address, thewhyandthebuy@gmail.com. Let us know how we've impacted you. Let us know what you'd like to hear more of. But we love to interact with people. And if you like what we're saying, let us know. There are literally hundreds of you on a regular basis that listen to us. We see the downloads. We see those data points and that information. But we would love to be able to help you more if you would only tell us how we can do that. So
absolutely,
definitely want to get that out there. But today I'm humbled because we're going to talk about key number 3 of my 5 keys to effective prospecting. These 5 keys were part of the bonus materials for the download of my ebook, which is fully available. You can go and get it right now at rethinkthewayyouSell.com. You'll get the ebook. You will get some of these bonus materials that'll be dripped to you over a campaign that lasts about 10 days. And then you get dropped into my Sunday newsletter list as well. So if you like what I am saying and you like what Christie brings out of me, there's a way you can hear from me even more regularly if you'd like. But prospecting is one of those things that salespeople don't do a lot of. They may do a lot of it, but I don't think they do it particularly well on average. And I think that I've distilled some of the keys that will make you more effective with those endeavors.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you think about prospecting as a cornerstone in most successful sales environments. I have met very few effective prospectors in my career. It's fascinating because, you know, marketing brings in business, you get business from referrals, but it's just kind of like being on that boat, right? You're just kind of swaying back and forth. You're not really driving the boat. You're just going where the boat takes you. That's how a lot of people prospect. And I love the fact that you've brought these tenets out. And I want to take people through all 5 of them. We've already done an episode on know what you bring to the table. Why are you different? Why are you valuable? And why does it matter? Right? So that's all about what you bring to the table. We did that in episode number 31, if you want to go back and listen to that one. And then recently in episode number 36, we did know who you need to be talking to. So who are they? Why do they buy? And why wouldn't they buy from you? And today we're going to talk about creating tension to create sales. So this is tenet number 3. So tell me about tension, Jeff.
This is the crux of the selling process. This is creating a need in the eyes of your prospect, the eyes and the minds of your prospects. This is that point where what you have to offer is going to ultimately serve to help your prospect get to the outcome they're looking to achieve. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, if you can't create some kind of tension, whether you are solving a problem or helping someone achieve a goal, right? Because I don't think that it's always about a problem being solved. I mean, solution selling is a big thing. I mean, not just the name of a system from 15 years ago, but just the idea that what you have helps to achieve some outcome means that you're providing some solution to some obstacle. Maybe that obstacle is going from $50 million to $60 million in revenue if you're a company, right? Maybe that obstacle is going from not being able to pay the rent or make payroll this week or this month to how do I get my business to a place where it's more salient, right? I mean, there's a lot that's said about finding pain and addressing these issues and making selling this kind of sadistic kind of process, right? Where everything's about pain and suffering, right? I don't think it needs to be that way. I don't think people buy fancy watches and expensive cars because they're in pain. Now, you want to tell me that daddy didn't hug Jimmy enough when he was growing up, and so now he's got to buy a Bentley? Then, okay, great. There maybe someone has something to say about that. But I think in general, someone as a prospect is trying to achieve the next thing. And here's the interesting part. Many times, they don't know that they need the solution that you have to offer them.
Yeah. Isn't that the famous Steve Jobs, right? That if he had asked what people would have wanted, they would have just wanted a bigger iPod or a bigger stereo, or, people can't think about what they don't know.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know, and you can't envision what's possible. Okay. So they're going to just ask for these incremental improvements on what they already have, as opposed to this completely life-changing and world-changing device that we have in our pockets today.
Well, it's funny. I'm from Detroit, so I go back even further than Steve Jobs. And Henry Ford said if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said
faster
a faster horse.
Yes.
And, it's just really interesting. We don't know what we don't know. And that's why I'll take calls sometimes. I will read the prospecting emails, the well-worded prospecting emails. I got one today. Hey, I can help your coaching business. There's this unique platform. I checked. I looked at the website. I spent 5 minutes. Not for me, but it was worth a look because someone took the time, understood what I was up against, had listened to a couple of podcast episodes, right? Showed me that they had interest in what I was doing and that they had something that may help me. Ultimately, they knew it was my decision. They knew it was up to me. And I believe, and I certainly hope this is the case, that they're not going to pester me every day or every 6 minutes with another email or a phone call or whatever. But the idea that you have something that will help your prospect if only your prospect knew about it.
Right.
That's where this comes from. Okay, so we've gotten to the point where you know what you bring to the table. Good. You go past the point where you understand who you should be talking to in order to present that solution. Now, how do you present it in a way that is going to mean something to your prospect? Right? Because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And what you have to do is uncover, you have to show them what is possible without necessarily telling them, because no one likes to pick up the phone, no one likes to read an email and then read a dissertation on the education that they, had they only gone to this school or only had this experience, would they know about that? They don't need to be schooled. They need to be engaged.
Oh, that's a good point. As oftentimes as salespeople, we come in with this level of bravado of, let me tell you what I know.
Yeah.
And it all comes back. Yeah, exactly. In fact, not only do I not care, get out.
Yeah, right? Let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you why I don't need to know what you know.
That's right. Exactly. I don't care what you're selling, right? Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. You and I talked about this before. I don't ever shy away from tension. In fact, if anything, I don't love confrontation, but I love tension, because tension creates a level of connection. It means that there's some level of connection already there. And that's a huge element in really taking the buyer to the next level, because you've got to be it means that you already have one foot in their world. You're already speaking the language. You know the things that are keeping them up at night. You've already asked those questions. In fact, I think that's one of your second tenets in this, or second points in this, is that you've got to ask great questions. Make sure you put it in their words to soften the blow. So it's not a confrontation. Tension is not about confronting someone and saying, oh, no, you're not doing it right. I know better, right? It's about, hey, we're walking this path together, and I got something that's going to change your world.
And you're right. Confrontation makes it seem like you're adversarial. That's where you're approaching someone aggressively. And let me tell you all about what you don't know. No. It's, hey, I do a lot of work with people like you in businesses like yours. What I've seen them run up against is this problem, fill in the blank here. What have you done to tackle that? Because I have a solution for that, and that's going to come later, okay, that I have a solution for that. But what I want you to do is talk about something to me in a way that is going to open you up about some of the challenges that you're facing. I already know those challenges because I'm well-schooled in your industry. I'm well-schooled in your environment. I'm well-schooled in the nature of your adversity. So what I have to do is be clever enough and educated enough to engage you with something, to get you talking about something that that I know you are passionate about, that I know you're up against. And when you can introduce that topic, now what you're doing is you're talking about the topic. You've got a passion that aligns with the passion of your customer. When you make the conversation about that topic, all of a sudden you're mutually discussing this problem and, wow, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. Well, I can tell you what I do about it. Here's this thing that I've used. And think about it. You can have that conversation as a salesperson to a prospect. That is the same conversation that two peers in the same industry would have over a beer at the bar. Hey, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about shrinking subscribers in the newspaper industry? Well, we've gone to this model online where we've got paid subscribers, and we do kind of a hybrid model where you can get the magazine, or you can get the online, or you can get both. You can package them differently. There's different features. There's different, people romanticize the feeling of the paper between their fingers. And so we've got a program for that demographic, as well as this, tablet only edition, whatever it is in the industry you're up against. For me, it was, in medical devices and with the implants that I sold, we processed and sterilized our implants with a process that didn't utilize gamma radiation. I will not bore you with the details of why that's important, but essentially we know that radiation's bad, right? Unless you're bitten by a radioactive spider, no one gets really a whole lot of benefit out of gamma rays. So I didn't want to talk smack on my competitors. I didn't want to bring them down at all. I didn't want to be the guy that was really just poisoning the well, so to speak. So I had nothing bad to say about anybody that I competed against, but I knew where I was different was with this sterilization process. So I didn't have a conversation about the device that I sold. I didn't have a conversation about the products that were implanted from my company. I had conversations about radiation. What are you guys doing about that? Oh, well, by the way, at the same time, the industry was evaluating the effects of radiation on these implants. So I had study after study after study. There was clearly a conversation going on in their industry. I tapped into that conversation. Well, you know what? I sold a lot of product. At a premium over my competitor in what we know in the hospital and healthcare industry as being a very cost-constrained environment. There was no way I was going to win on price because, quite frankly, our product cost more to produce. But when people saw the value of what I had, because of the conversations I was able to have about why it was valuable, the sale made itself. I mean, nothing really sells itself, but all of a sudden it was just I'd have customers and prospects finishing my sentences for me. Oh, so if you had a product then if there was only a product that didn't sterilize using gamma radiation, then that would probably be better, not only for the patients, but it would reduce the incidence after surgery, all these things right down the line. I said, yeah. Oh, by the way, I have it.
You're
right
like,
here.
Score.
I don't know how many times, you can go in with the right questions and say, describe the perfect product.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, by the way, and it happened more than once. I could pull what the prospect described as the perfect product right out of my sample bag and say, it's right here.
Yeah.
This is not something you invented. This is something I came to talk to you about today. You want to see how many people sat back in their seats immediately. I mean, that's the kind of thing you can do. And I don't want to get too far off track here, but, when you can show the prospect something that they are not aware of, by just engaging them in something they're already passionate about discussing, you can teach them something in a way that is going to have them engage with you in a way they never have before. And you will differentiate yourself from any other salesperson who's just calling off a list, calling off calling from their CRM. You sound like someone who is, could be a good fit for our product, or, there's so many different ways I can go with it. I'm kind of speechless myself, but think about the way you're interacting with your prospects. Are you really engaging them, or are you asking them questions you should probably know the answer to already? Or are you even an expert in your field? And that's something we'll get to with tenet number 4. But can you engage your prospects in a way they haven't been engaged with in the past?
Well, and I tell you, if you can take that one step further, and I'm sure we'll go through that as we talk about Be the Expert, which is the next tenet in this series. If you can take what you just described and go on a lunch and learn circuit, hit every hospital, facility, wherever it was you were selling this device, and say, I can come in and talk for 45 minutes about the effects of radiation in this particular circumstance. And oh, by the way, I can also talk about some of the technological advancements that are happening in the industry to move you past this challenge. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'll set up a table in the back of the room. It's all passive.
Yeah.
Right? Then all of a sudden it's passive tension. You've created this awareness of a problem they didn't know existed already. And in this case they did, but in many cases they don't. And you gave them a path to resolve that problem. And oh, by the way, here, you can call me if you want.
Right.
I'll be happy to sell you that.
Right. And
right? It's tension in the perfect sense, because there is no yes, no, or maybe coming from the client. It is really just a matter of continued education and awareness.
Well, and think about the calls that you make, whether it's in person, whether it's over the phone, whether it's an email. How many times do you get a yes or no or a maybe answer, right? How many times do you get an answer of, wow, that's something I should think about?
Yeah.
Because that's the one you want, right? There are not a lot of industries out there, at least, it seems from the audience that listens to shows like ours, there are not a lot of products or industries out there where you can just call someone or get in front of them in some way, shape, or form, get their attention, and then close a sale before the end of that conversation. There are typically multiple steps if there aren't multiple decision makers involved in the sale. But now what you've got to do, and, this was a problem in medicine, in orthopedics specifically, that was kind of emerging in the marketplace at the same time we were realizing that it was our biggest benefit. So we were helping to create that conversation. So what it was not only starting the conversation as a means of prospecting, making people aware of this issue, but then also doing it in such a way that these peers, my customers and my prospects, were talking to each other about it at the same time. We were contributing to a bigger conversation in the industry. And I don't think enough companies do that. I don't think enough companies contribute to the conversations that are leading to adversities in the industries that they serve.
Right. And I want to make a good distinction there, is that companies have a moral and ethical responsibility to participate in those conversations. But as individual contributors inside the organization, you can also contribute to the conversation. It does not have to be company driven,
right,
to be effective.
Right. And you can stand out by being the one willing to have those conversations.
Absolutely. And not only that, my God, if your company figures out that you're the person who can stand up in front of a room of 50 people and do a lunch and learn and deliver value that isn't in a hard selling mode, you just created another avenue of value that you're adding to your organization.
Yeah.
Because not everyone can do that.
You're absolutely right, Christie. And that's a way to differentiate yourself and get more attention within your organization too. tension is this thing, and I love it. You said this a few episodes ago when we were talking about asking great questions, is that you have no tension without first establishing some sort of connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's a point that's missed. We just want to come in there, and salespeople feel like they just need to ask great questions and they'll get some results, and maybe they'll learn a few things to be able to come back and ask a better question later. But are you asking the question with the intention of creating tension? Right. And again, it's not, do this or I'm going to punch you in the face kind of tension. It's not confrontational. It's, are you making your prospect think when you ask these questions? Are you making them consider new information?
Right. And are you keeping them engaged? And that's really what I was thinking of when I made the comment about tension and connection are going to happen simultaneously. If you're connecting with your clients, that means that they're engaging with you. That tension, good or bad. So if it's bad, deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. Address it head on. At least you're able to have a conversation. The worst is the client that won't engage. They're right. Either indifferent, they won't commit, or when they do commit, they're only half there.
Right.
So that tension means that you've got them going. You've got something happening there. So that's a really good sign.
And that is momentum that moves forward as well.
Yeah.
So you may not close the sale right away. You may not even get a commitment for a meeting right away. But if you're asking questions, if you're creating some engagement, it will create some momentum for you as well, so that the next prospecting call can go a little bit further. And I think that from what I've seen out there, maybe it's just me and the companies I'm working with, and maybe that's why they're working with me. They don't have a goal of creating that engagement by creating tension. Everything is so non-confrontational, and we don't want to be salesy at all that we forget to toe that line of engagement. And I think that's what great salespeople do.
Absolutely. So let's recap for the audience. So tell us the 3 key things that they need to take away from this conversation.
You have to understand that your prospect does not know what they don't know, right? You have information that they're not aware of. There's still an imbalance there, right? With all the information in the world, you say we had Google in our pockets and, supercomputers in our pockets we carry around with us everywhere we go. That's all well and good, but there's so much information out there, no one can possibly know it all. So especially if you've got a unique and novel solution that they can't possibly be aware of yet, understand that you have knowledge that they don't, and that's okay. Secondly, you have to engage them, and I believe that comes from asking great questions and by teaching them something. Okay, so my 3 tenets of this key to effective prospecting, of creating tension to create sales, is that your prospect doesn't know what they don't know. You have to ask great questions, and you have to teach them something that will be beneficial to them. Those are my 3 points here.
That's wonderful. I love this particular one. I have one more of your key takeaways that we're going to talk about a couple of episodes from now when we talk about keeping your swagger. I'm thinking that's going to be probably going to match my excitement with creating tension. But I do love this. I think you were spot on when you said the tension is the crux of sales. Well, you have to have it.
Well, a little foreshadowing there, Christie. I like that. Thank you for that. Yeah. And swagger's a big part of it because this game's hard, but I'll save that for a couple of episodes from now. I do want to take a little sidestep here and talk about another way to create tension in order to create more sales, and that's for sales managers. There are a lot of sales managers out there that want to get the call reports. They want to overlook the CRM. They want to really challenge their own sales reps. And there are ways that you can create that tension within your own sales teams. And so often anymore, with how flat some organizations are, and with the way a lot of salespeople are with authority, we don't want to rock that boat too much. But I was working through something with a client not too long ago, and there were some of the call reports that were coming back with some vague activities. I'm going to do this. I've got a plan to do that. This is going to happen at what time? And I'm just kind of going through these. It was part of a meeting, and I said, okay, what's the plan? If this isn't a good prospect, why are we spending more time with them? Where are these things going? Because you just said one thing, but then you felt like you needed to put more words in this report to beef it up. And what you did was just polished up a piece of garbage, right? Like this thing doesn't tell me anything, but you had to tell me.
It may be shiny,
something.
but it still stinks.
Yeah, I like that. Very well. And so one of the things, and I think back to my managers when they did this, the best sales managers I ever had, they'd ask that extra question. Oh, so all right, I'm planning to do this. Okay, what's that plan? About that. And it chapped me when I got it. It chapped me when I had to turn in a report every Thursday night and spend 45 minutes, filling out this sheet so I could have my half-hour call on Friday morning. You know what? When I look back on it, it made me a better salesperson.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with that. And I fought the report issue for years until I finally just gave up and did what was asked of me. And all of a sudden, I was shocked at how much progress I made in my own planning and movement forward that I was not making until I really committed to it.
I think the best salespeople challenge their customers to think differently. I believe that the best sales managers, certainly the best sales managers I ever had, challenged me to get better. Despite the fact that in those few minutes after I'd get those emails or after I'd get those questions on the phone or in person, I wasn't real happy. It could sometimes be abrasive. But ultimately, when I look back, and even in the time, I knew it. Anytime I've ever worked with a coach, you get that question you just don't want to answer.
Yep.
Or can't even get the words out right. You're just beside yourself.
Yep.
Those are the moments where you really see improvement. Yeah. And I think it's the sales manager's responsibility to challenge their people to get better. I think that's what it's all about. And not enough sales managers are able to do that because of the roles that they've been cast into in their own organizations. And, Christie, I know a couple people who can help with that, but that's another podcast entirely.
We can, good coaches call you on your stuff all the time, right?
And that's the point.
That's something we do every day. But, I think there's so much richness in what you just described. And I think there's a sales manager specific conversation we should have about prospecting and managing a team that is prospecting. And I bet we have some good authorities in our history that we can pull in to talk about that. And here's the deal, right? As a good sales manager, if you are a true servant leader, which means that you have the heart at your heart, you have the success and fulfillment of your people in mind, as well as your customer base, whatever tension you're creating isn't going to be viewed in a negative way. They may not love it right off the bat, but you are pushing them to be better and they are going to love you for it. And I can speak about that from experience. I will never forget one of my favorite leaders of all time, Bob Mossler. I'll give a shout out to Bob, those in the security industry who know Bob. Bob is in semi-retirement right now. He does a little recruiting, but he and I worked really well together, and I was in the middle of reporting and, some goal setting and a couple of other things. And, I was kind of busy doing the work. I don't really want to put it down on paper. Come on, I'm doing the work, right? Come on. And he said, I just would really hate for you to not build up this skill set in your career. You're too talented to let that hold you back. And I was like, oh, that was a compliment and something else wrapped in together, but I will never forget it. And he is, to this day, I talk to him every month, catch up with him. And I still believe he was one of the best leaders I have worked with, primarily because there was not a single individual that ever worked for him that didn't believe he would go to bat for them all the way to the end. And, but he was going to hold your feet to the fire when he needed to.
Yep.
So,
and even to take it all the way full circle back to the salesperson customer relationship, what I think I do differently and have always done differently, or maybe a little bit better than what some other people would do in my role, is if there was a question that I really thought needed to be asked, but didn't want to be, but I didn't want to ask, more often than not, I would ask it anyway. And to the point where you could cut the tension in the room, sometimes in the operating room with a knife, right? But those are the things.
No pun intended.
See what I did there? More often than not, actually almost every time, my willingness to ask those questions, especially when I knew other people in the room had them too and just wouldn't ask, my willingness to be vulnerable in those situations really moved the process forward, made everybody in that situation better. I was often complimented on that. And so I say this with an asterisk, right? But chances are, if there's something that you really need to know in a selling situation, but you're just not sure if you can ask, chances are you can ask it, and chances are you should ask it.
Right.
Because that tension is what separates the best from the ordinary.
Yeah. Wow. I think we're going to leave it at that statement. I love that. Okay. So stay tuned. We've covered the first 3 keys, which were know what you bring to the table, know who you need to be talking to, and now create tension to create sales. The next 2 are coming, and that's be the expert and keep your swagger. So stay tuned for those. And with that, Jeff, when you know your why,
your hows and your whats get much better. Thanks, Christie.
That's it.
Thanks for helping me kind of promote this little project that I've put together. If you're really interested, if you want to see the whole list all together, we've got a little kind of reminder, kind of prospecting card that you can print out. It's one of the bonus materials that come with the book. You can get all that at rethinkthewayyouSell.com. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why and the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at the Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week. How about the music on this podcast? We call them Our House Band. They call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out.
And that's okay, because we'll have a good time on Sunday, every Sunday.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.